Hi, Holly here. And in this video, I'm going to show you how even the busiest, most overworked ladies can still write those big, important stories they need to write without having to move to a desert island or throw their whole lives out of whack. In fact, I'm going to show you how you can get started on the road to turning that story into the best book or script you've ever written today, even if at this moment you are certain that you do not have enough time or talent. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you've already tried all the things that me and my students have tried in the past, like trying to pretend the desire to write the story is going to magically go away, torturing yourself incessantly about what you haven't written, fantasizing that somehow magically someone will show up and write it for you, and even better, worrying that the diving into the story might open up an emotional can of worms. Or maybe you've already written some form of a first draft, but are currently telling yourself that everything you've written is boring, useless, and can't be fixed. If this is you, I truly do get it. It was me too. And I know what it feels like to have important stories burning inside you while simultaneously fearing that you may let yourself down and never complete them. Like you, I did not have endless swaths of time to just lounge around in some mountain house writing them either. I was once a busy director of development for an indie producer, spending my days reading other people's scripts and juggling a boatload of production calls. By the time I got home at night, all I wanted to do was eat dinner with my husband, watch some shows, and go to bed. But I could never fully relax into that because the guilt of not writing was always there nagging at me. And as time went on, honestly, I grew embarrassed because I had told far too many people about my story. And now years had gone by with no completed script. I was looking like someone who is all talk, and I hated that. This frustration with myself then leaked out really everywhere. I was sometimes cranky about my job, dreamed of quitting it, even though it was a great job and we really needed the money. And I was low key resentful of my husband because he was already doing his passion for a living. All I had to lean into were my excuses. But one day, a friend of mine asked me, Holly, when are you going to finally write that script? And I gave her the old, I just don't have enough time. And she was having none of it. She said, how many pages are in a script? And I sheepishly said, 110. And she said, so if you wrote one page a day, when would you be finished? Ah, damn it. She ruined all my excuses in just a few sentences. I simply couldn't argue with that logic. So I made a commitment to get up earlier in the mornings. That was the only way. I threw myself into the shower each morning before my inner self could argue, and I just wrote for 30 to 40 minutes each morning because that was really all I could muster. And that's how I finally wrote my first script, 30 minutes at a time. But the real surprise was the unexpected benefits that started literally the first day I made this new commitment. It turned out that giving myself that time for my creativity in the morning changed the whole mood of my day. Suddenly, I was just a lot happier to be at work because work was no longer in the way of my dreams. Now it was in service of them. And dinner and shows at night with my husband were gloriously guilt-free because I was truly by then done with my day. And my confidence in myself as a writer shot through the roof because, well, there's nothing like daily writing to help you get better at it and help you continue to get closer and closer to that completion. Duh. So I think you're likely understanding what my first suggestion to you is going to be, and that is to just start writing right now, today. Literally make that decision to be good to yourself and your creative soul by putting writing time on the calendar. Even if you have to start getting up earlier and going to bed earlier, I swear you can do it. This is something that you just have to make time. Time is something that you make. It's not something you find. And if you make time every day, And don't make it some big hairy deal, but just part of your normal schedule that you're clocking in for. You will inch ever closer to completion of that book or script. But obviously, with writing, that's not the only thing that needs to change, is it? Because all of us writers know that the biggest problem we face outside of getting our butts into the seat is ourselves, our inner critic. So let's just talk about that. Let's talk about the three mistakes that writers make as it relates to managing that inner critic, because without fixing these, the inner critic might just win, and then you really won't make it to completion, and that'll just be sad. So, all right, first mistake I see writers making is having unrealistic expectations about how long it's going to take. We've all seen those ads, how to write a book in 30 days. Yeah, I'll show you how to write a shitty book in 30 days. We live in this product obsessed world where everything's about sales and deadlines and speed, and this ridiculous notion that you shouldn't even dare call yourself a writer unless you've already published an award-winning bestseller. And the impact of that is that far too many writers end up thinking that if they can't bang out some perfectly marketable book or script and quick, that maybe they just don't have the talent it takes. But that is nonsense and simply not how great books or scripts get written. We are storytellers, not machines. We have these beautiful beating hearts that have opinions about the timing of it all. And if you just want to get it done and just want to get it done fast, then have AI write it for you. Done. Moving on. No need for this video. But if that's not the case, then continue on. I'll give you a little example from one of my students about how you can overcome this journey. We'll call her Naomi. She came into my writing program wanting to write a comedy about one of the most challenging, but also the most healing years of her life, which I thought was a brilliant idea, right? Things she knows, really good material. But her own self imposed deadlines quickly passed with barely a page written, and she was in a world of pain from her inner critic who told her constantly how much she sucked. I had to talk her out of giving up almost every single week. I'm not kidding. The real truth was that she chose a brilliant but challenging story to write, and her skills and even her willingness to express all that personal, occasionally embarrassing stuff needed some guidance and some marination time before she could write the pages to the level that she had envisioned it in her head. And what I also knew as her coach was that she was likely going to need time before she could genuinely start to see that intense year as funny and then express it, therefore, in a way that we could all share a knowing laugh along with her. But the good news is she didn't stick with it. She stopped fighting it. She settled into process. She said, I know, Holly. and and eventually she was understanding more and more about exactly the story she was trying to write in a more succinct way. And then one day the pages just started flowing, and they haven't stopped since. The whole community's been so inspired to see this breakthrough in her, and they are all rooting for her, me of course included. But in order to get there, she needed to relax and let go of those false expectations about how fast she was going to get there and what that might say about her talent. So, another mistake writers often make, number two, is not developing a process that you can lean into. Writers genuinely do need something powerful enough to override that inner critic, especially when they start digging into the more pokey parts of their stories. Otherwise, those necessary all is lost moments that you need in every great story for your character can end up feeling like an all is lost moment for you as the writer. No matter how much experience you have as a writer, it really helps to have a tried and true process you can lean into and run your story through when the going gets rough. So you can stay, firmly out of your head and into your heart, because that's where all the creative ahas are. Another one of my students, we're going to call her Deb, was already a professional writer when she came to me with the discipline and the confidence needed to get to completion. But this was different because she was about to write her first novel. She'd never done that before, and it was a very personal one. And she knew that in order to do it justice, she's going to need to dive headfirst into the emotional deep end. But she also knew there was likely going to be that internal resistance, and she wanted to guard against that, have a plan. So she jumped into my curriculum, which is designed to ask you all the right questions in just the right order. And she just trusted it. She just let them all wash over her, and the story just poured out of her. She effectively usurped that controlling mind by following the plan so that she didn't have to worry about where she was in the process or getting lost or stuck, which is usually what activates the controlling mind. She could just allow herself to sink deeply into the moment at hand and allow the answers to bubble up organically. Thanks to the process, she even managed to actually enjoy those cathartic experiences of all the emotions that were brought up from it. She wasn't afraid of it. She would be on to the next. So Deb has not only completed a first draft of her story at this point, she is now fully leaning into the process again to put a whole new story through the process. We expect great things from her. So finally, the third mistake that I often see from writers is trying to go it alone. Just like training for a marathon, the journey toward completion of a book or script is rife with moments where not only will your inner critic tell you to give up, but your very real external life circumstances and or people in your life will try to claim themselves as more important than your writing time. It's often in those moments that the only thing that stops you from quitting or procrastinating is a coach and or a community that you feel accountable to. My client Claire came to me for just that reason. Claire was a busy producer, mom, wife, and caregiver for an elderly mother, and what felt like zero time for writing, the thing that had always been her first love. She even had a director waiting on rewrites for a script she'd written years ago, but she'd done no work on it in 2 years and was feeling awful about it. Even though she was doubtful that even my program was going to work, she dove in an attempt to change things and adopted my little by little approach. She used my scheduled calls as her excuse to block out time on her calendar that was just for her. She counted on my curriculum to help her make sure every brief writing session that she had was at least very highly productive. And she really leaned into the accountability of the group calls and the table reads. In fact, she found herself inspired to make sure she wrote at least a few pages every week because she knew the group was waiting with bated breath to read them. They were they were on it. Got pages, Claire? Got pages? And now we are all celebrating the fact that Claire's script was 1 out of 12 chosen for Meryl Streep's Writers Lab for women over 40. We are so incredibly proud of her. So yeah, if you recognize yourself in any of those stories, if you too are piling unrealistic expectations on yourself, not developing a solid practice that you can lean into, trying to go it alone, and are realizing now that it's truly not okay with you to keep going the way you've been going, that you really don't want to die with your stories inside you, and that you want those kinds of victories that I mentioned here for yourself. If you're getting the sense that maybe it isn't time or talent that's in the way of you writing that next book or script, and that really you just need to create a strategy for yourself so that you can get that support in that process that'll keep you on that path to completion, then you found this video at the right time because for the next month, I have some availability on my calendar, and this is your chance to book a free mini coaching session with me. On the call, we can chat about where you're at with your writing, clarify where you'd like to be, what your end goals are, unpack what might be getting in the way, and assess what brand of support that you might need to ensure that you fulfill those goals at a level that you've never reached before without having to throw your whole life out of whack. After chatting, if it seems like you might be a fit for one of my coaching programs, then we can chat about that too. Or if not, I can certainly use my spidey senses to help point you in the right direction. I love helping writers in that way. But either way, you're going to get a ton of clarity and value on the call for how to start moving forward right away. So I look forward to speaking with you and getting to know you. And we'll see if becoming a member of the LTP writing community is a right next step for you. In order to grab that mini free coaching session, go to the button on the page below and just click on it, and make sure to grab it quick though if you're interested, because no joking around, spaces really are limited, and once I've filled the spots for the year, there likely won't be spots opening for a full year after that, maybe longer, because my students don't like to leave. So don't put it off. You know you've been wanting to write that book or script and feel the satisfaction of having done so for a long time now. And I think deep down, you know that the desire isn't going to go away. So why go back to not writing and to feeling guilty about it, being irritated with your life because it feels like everything's in the way, or feeling like a bad writer when all your writer self really needed to thrive was some proper love and time and process and community? Just decide you're going to give your heart what it wants today, starting with this simple phone call. Click the button below. There's a short application to fill out, but that's just so I can get to know you a little better so we can make that the most of that mini coaching session. And yeah, I hope that this time has been inspiring and insightful no matter what, and that you really do put writing on your calendar, and that you're excited to get going right away, because the world needs your stories and your stories need you. So just click the button, book the call, fill out the form, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.